afternoon. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. I'm so excited today for a lot of reasons. One is because we're going to make macaroni and cheese, and everybody loves macaroni and cheese. It's the all-time grandma dish because every grandchild wants macaroni and cheese. I'm going to share with you the recipe that I make. It's the one dish I have to make at every family gathering, and I'm going to tell you a short story about macaroni and cheese. Years ago, I used to write articles for magazines, and I wrote a story once on macaroni and cheese, and my story was basically this. I was a young mother. I cooked for my children, but I had memories of my grandmother's macaroni and cheese, and she had died, and it was too late for me to ask her for the recipe or to get her to teach me how to make it. So I went on a quest. This was my grandmother Louise. My grandmother Louise had 6 daughters. One I couldn't get in touch with, but the other 5, I hounded them. I need you to tell me how Grandma made her macaroni and cheese. And so each one of the 5 I went to and talked to, and each one told me how they made macaroni and cheese, but no one could tell me how Louise had made it. So I finally, in frustration, went to my mother and said, I just don't believe that none of her daughters has kept the secret of that wonderful macaroni and cheese. She was a well-known cook in her time, and surely somebody would have saved those recipes. And my mother looked at me and said, well, I have it. And this is my grandmother's daughter-in-law. And I, in my quest, bypassed my own mother, as I was so upset with other folks who had bypassed theirs. So I published that story. People kind of liked it because it was more about our quest to learn from our mothers, and that's a lot of what we do. Before I start cooking, I want to introduce you to someone. That's another reason I'm very excited. Lisa Dye. Lisa, join me.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey, Lisa. Lisa drove up to be with us today, and she's got some exciting news to tell you about. Our Facebook group, Cooking from Scratch on Debbie's Back Porch. Lisa admins that group, and she's got some good news for you. Lisa?
Well, I'll tell you just a snippet about me. I met Debbie on the gardening group, Debbie's Back Porch, and that was a big blessing to me. And then Debbie had asked me if I would join her and some others in doing Cooking from Scratch. And I was so excited because I'm a baker. I know about the inside of the oven, but when it comes to the top and the stove, I get petrified. And then again, I would watch videos and people would use terms that I was not familiar with. And in this group, we have so many members that just offer their support to teach each other. What does this mean? What is this terminology, that terminology? So we started gathering the information, and I was amazed at what I have learned in such a short time. So I'm really excited, one, to get to visit with Debbie today, but I really love that group, and I would love for all of you to come and join us. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing a recipe on the internet and there's no one to ask questions. You can't interact. We are totally an interactive group. We are all cooking from scratch, but it's original. So on the 18th, we'll be moving to a new address, and we would love to have you all come and join us. It's a great group, and it's drama-free, but you also learn a lot there. And macaroni and cheese is one of my favorites, so I'm really lucky today to be here.
Thanks, Lisa. And I'm going to post the link for you to join Cooking from Scratch on Debbie's Back Porch. And Lisa will be there, and I will be there, and others, wonderful admins will be there. And they're very supportive, and they're very helpful. And there are about 1,000 original recipes in that group.
1,500.
1,500 original recipes in that group, all member tested. So if there's something you're looking for, you're going to find it there. So mark your calendar. Mark your calendar October 18th, and we'll have the link below. And now I'm going to introduce you to and turn you over to the Handy Dandy Prep Crew. Go! Okay, I wanted to take just a minute because I've seen lots of folks ask questions about this. The prep crew is going to show you a little trick. People worry about their pasta sticking. And we've cooked it according to directions. I actually didn't cook it al dente. I cooked it according to directions. If you want to slow it so that it no longer continues to cook, splash it with cold water. This stops the cooking process. Remember, we're going to heat it up again when we make our macaroni and cheese. But you splash it with cold water, put it back in the pan, put a little splash of olive oil on it, and stir it around. Now I'm going to let this sit until we're ready to add it to our cheese mixture. And it'll be fine, and it won't be stuck together. That's your little tip for the day. Thank you, prep crew. So glad Lisa was here to give you a hand today. They do a fine job. So, macaroni and cheese. I've been talking to you in my other videos about the 5 mother sauces, and we're going to use one of these today, and this is my favorite sauce. What we're going to do is make a bechamel sauce, and that's butter and flour and milk, and I have things measured out here, so we'll start. I have 6 tablespoons full of butter already melted in this enamel Dutch oven. And just so you know, we're going to bake in this also. This is going to be a 1-dish macaroni and cheese, but you don't have to do that. If you've got your favorite little macaroni and cheese dish, just pour it over into that. In this bechamel, in this butter, to make the bechamel sauce, I'm going to add ½ cup of flour. As I'm always telling folks, this is self-rising flour. You should use all-purpose. I always have self-rising flour. It has salt in it, and then I don't have to salt anymore. But the recipe traditionally calls for all-purpose flour. So I'm mixing this in. You do this kind of slowly, and you saw I had the heat high enough that the butter was bubbling but not burning. Lisa's running our camera for us today. I'm so lucky to have a camera person. Usually I'm by myself. So you see I'm mixing this in as I go. A bechamel is a blonde sauce, meaning we don't let the flour brown. We cook this at a fairly low heat. I'm sorry, I've got a little spot there that I apparently didn't sift out properly. It has to go. So that's my ½ cup. So that's equal parts flour and butter. And you always let it sizzle at least a minute, couple, because flour will have a pasty flavor. And this probably looks familiar to you. This is how you start with the gravy. Let me give you a word about gravy and bechamel sauce too, by the way. Often there are folks that have a discussion on our group and in other groups about making gravy, and they make what they call a slurry and add that. And that would be the milk and the flour mixed together first, and then they add it to the broth or whatever. A bechamel sauce is the perfect base for gravy because you cook away the pasty flavor that the flour can give it, and if you make your gravy with a slurry, that doesn't happen. So either way is gravy, but this is a way that I think you get a fuller flavor. Okay, you can tell by the smell and by the look. It's blonde, see? It's got a little bit of yellow, but it's not dark. and you can smell the nutty rich flavor coming from it. The next step is milk. I've got 5½ cups of milk measured out here, and that's to give us enough that it's not too thick, because this is going to bake in the oven for a little while. So we have a hot roux, we have cold milk. You're not going to find that everybody agrees on that, but that's what I've always been taught, and it works for me. But you pour the milk in slowly so that it's tempered as you go. Now you see how that thickens up? It's thicker with the milk than it was without it. And you have to stir, stir, stir. Now you'll notice I'm using enamel coated cast iron here. And I'm using a silicone whisk. I do that because if you use metal on metal, it can turn it dark, and we don't want it dark. And you stir, stir, stir a lot, because you want to work out any lumps. We don't want lumps. Here we go. I'm too full. I hope I don't spill. So now we're thin. Okay. Now we have a very thin sauce, but it's going to thicken right up. If you've ever made gravy, you know how it's going to thicken up. And so we're going to turn the camera off and let this cook 5-6 minutes, perhaps a little bit longer, and I'll come back and show you what we have in the next step. Okay, our bechamel sauce has been sitting here simmering for about 10 minutes, and it's starting to get some thickness. The longer we leave it, the thicker it'll get, but I don't want to scorch it, and it's getting thick enough. Now remember, we still got a lot to do. In your traditional bechamel sauce, it has 3 more ingredients. It has salt. Let's taste it. Needs a little salt. So you salt to taste. A good healthy pinch. Even with my self-rising flour, this needs more salt. I don't really eat pepper much, but in this particular dish, I always put pepper because that's one of the things I remember of my grandmother's, is she always had thick flakes of pepper in it. So just as much as you like. Stir it up. And the other traditional ingredient in bechamel is nutmeg. Now you may not think of putting nutmeg in macaroni and cheese, but I promise you it's going to give it a depth of flavor that you're going to like. And so we stir this in well. Let me get my whisk. So, should have sifted that in. I don't want the flakes, the spots of it. I'll beat it out. So how we test when our bechamel is done is the same way we test in earlier videos I have shown you with velouté sauce. It needs to be nappé. Nappé means it coats the back of a spoon. And when it coats the back of a spoon, it's done. If you run your finger down there through that, it doesn't run together. So that's nappé. It's ready to go. Has the seasoning. The next thing we put in is 5½ cups of cheese. I'm sorry, 4.5 cups of cheese. Now what I've got here is mostly white cheese just because I like the look of that. This is 3 or 4 different kinds of cheese. Any kind of cheese you want. This has some, what all is in this, Lisa? Mozzarella, white cheddar, sharp white cheddar, queso blanco. We've got lots of different kinds of cheeses in here. And we're going to stir this up, and we want it to melt. Now what we have here is a modified Mornay sauce. Let me explain. If you make a bechamel sauce and you add cheese, traditionally Parmesan and Gruyere, that's a Mornay sauce. And so what we've got here is a modified Mornay sauce. And we've got lumps of cheese because some of it we chunked and some of it we grated. But this is so cheesy. Can you see that? Can you see the thickness and the richness? Okay, we're almost done. What's left is the macaroni. And as I showed you in our little insert, the way you do your macaroni to keep it from sticking together is you shock it with cold water and then you pour a little olive oil on it. I gotta turn this down, it's getting thick fast. This is a 1-pound box of macaroni. It made a lot. Just a little note here, I did not cook this al dente. I cooked it according to package directions. That's up to you. I prefer it a little doner than al dente for macaroni and cheese. But if you want it al dente, you go right ahead. I think it's all going to fit in this. This is the first time I've used this pot to make macaroni and cheese.
I visited on the perfect day.
So you want it all in there. I'm actually going to turn this off now, because all we're doing at this point is mixing. And yes, it's all going to fit. So this is a pound box, a 16-ounce box of macaroni. Now you may make your own pasta, and in another video, at another time, I'll show you how to make pasta if you don't already know. But for right now, this is grocery store pasta, cooked per box directions, and this works out to just exactly the right amount of cheese for the amount of sauce we made. And I will post that ingredient list at the end of the video. Finishing touch, I saved the yellow cheese for the top. And this is about a cup of grated medium cheddar cheese. You use any cheddar cheese you like. That's the thing about macaroni and cheese, and it's the thing that I learned from my quest for my grandmother's macaroni and cheese, is you don't need your grandmother's macaroni and cheese. What you need is to make your own, and it's your signature, and it's your art, and people will know you and know your macaroni and cheese. And I promise, no matter what I do, my macaroni and cheese is not going to be as good as your grandma's, and yours is not going to be as good to my grandchildren, because you made it with love, and that's what makes it special. In the oven for 45 minutes on 375. I'll be back. Okay, there's our timer. It's ready to go. You're gonna have to be really careful. This is heavy and hot and juicy and lovely. Oh, and heavy. Did I say heavy? Here we go. Macaroni and cheese. Hold on just a second. I do not want the heat right there. Wow. What do you think, Lisa?
It is beautiful. And the smell, it must be the nutmeg. The extra, of course, it's the cheese also.
Well, we're going to try it. I'm going to dish you some up. Turn the camera up so folks can see it. And this is still very juicy. Okay, it's too hot. You're going to have to let it cool a bite.
I'll just...
Now you know this is not low carb.
No, this is heaven. This is exactly what it is. It's heaven.
Okay, there's your clean fork. Let's give it a shot. Almost too hot to eat.
Yes, it is. And I want that big cheesy chunk right there.
Yep. That's it.
Heaven. Heaven.
Grandma LaVice would be proud. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. We're going to have some macaroni and cheese, and I'm going to come back to you tomorrow, and we're going to fry up some chicken. Thank you.